Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Profitable Christian Business. I am so happy to have my guest Joshua Jurkovich with me. Is that the right way to say your last name?
It's close. You got it close enough. It's Jurkovich, exactly
I
like
thought I said that. Joshua Jurkovich.
yeah, there you go. You nailed it.
Okay. All right. Apologies right away, but we're going to dive into a lot of cool stuff today. We're going to talk about some marketing. We're going to talk about some faith questions, which is always my favorite piece. And we're also going to have a little fun, especially at the beginning. So without further ado, Joshua, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, what's going on, Doug? Thank you first and foremost for having me on the show again. I think that we did this two or three, it must have been a while ago, but we did this a while ago. But
I
either
think it was
way,
like 3 years ago.
uh, yeah, it's crazy how many pivots you have in business versus like what I was doing back then versus what I'm doing now. I'd love to compare and contrast the two. But what's up, everybody? My name's Joshua Jurkovich. I've started going more by my spiritual name, Joshua, because it just lands a lot more based on the season that I'm in my life. But I am the CEO and founder of a company called Extract Media, where we help experts and authority figures extract their genius so they can change the world. It's what we do. We do that through technology, marketing, sales, operations, support, and really helping work with authority figures and business owners to help them understand their why foundationally and help bring that to the world in a way that's congruent and in alignment with who they are and who God says that they are. And so um, I feel like I have so much more clarity on that even now than I was like a couple years ago. But I'm just so excited to be on the show. Thank you so much, Doug.
Well, I'm excited to have you. And just to kind of recap anyone that doesn't know the history, Joshua was on the show when it was the entrepreneur journey. It has talked about pivots, right? One of the pivots, and he and I seem to be on very similar journeys. So this is going to be a very good conversation. If you had saw him on, you would have saw him on the Entrepreneur Journey podcast, and now he's coming back to the Profitable Christian Business podcast because there are several people that I wanted to reach out to once I read took this pivot because I knew having this conversation around faith would be so much more powerful if I had them back and we were able to dive into that a little bit more than we did in the past. So yeah, thanks again for coming on, Josh.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so now let's dive. I still carry this over from the entrepreneur journey. I love having a little bit of fun at the beginning, so I have some fun questions to ask you, and let's see what your response is. So the first one is, if you're at a networking event and have to introduce yourself in a very weird way, how do you do it?
I mean, so you gave us these questions prior to coming here, and that was one of the ones that I looked at. I'm like, I don't really go to networking events, so
Mm,
like it's not something that I really love doing. But I would say like okay, I guess the weirdest way that I ever see anybody introduce themselves has nothing to do with about what they say. But
mm.
if I wanted to make somebody insanely uncomfortable or like be kind of weird with it, I would walk up and just say, "Hey, what's going on? My name's Joshua," but then give him like the floppy fish handshake. You know what I'm talking about?
Nice.
Like
Hmm.
when somebody can't shake a hand well, you just give them the floppy fish and you just let them like I would probably that would be the weirdest way that I would introduce myself to leave a first impression that I have a floppy fish handshake.
Nice. I have a friend that actually goes up and hugs people, strangers, the first time he meets them.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that's sweet.
you know, that's one way to do it, right? Definitely getting you
You know,
somebody's
one thing
personal space right away.
I do think maybe people think that this is weird, but I really like high fives.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times they'll be like, "What's up?" And I'll just like go and give somebody a high five. Maybe they might think that's weird, but I think it's cool. So
I almost prefer like the fist bump or the high five to a handshake because I feel like there's more energy in it. I don't know. Just
yeah,
weird.
I could see that. I feel like for me, the fist bump is more like the when you're trying to like Irish exit or get out of a place and you don't really want
Mm.
to say bye or like hug and
Oh,
everything's
yeah.
kind of weird. And you're like, "Hey, all right, I'll see you later," and you give
Yeah.
somebody the fist bump.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So then I think you just like to reverse that, you fist bump and hug them.
yeah, exactly. Do the heart to heart hug or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So the next thing is, if you had to turn your childhood hobby into a full-time business, what would that be?
I mean, I feel like that's what I'm doing.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with my mom the other day, and she was talking about what I loved to do when I was a little kid. And the main thing that I really liked to do when I was a kid was teach people stuff.
Mm.
Like I was always in books, my head was in encyclopedias, I was always reading and doing different things. And like I'm one of seven kids in my family. And so I
Wow.
had an older brother, I had a younger brother right around me. And really my biggest passion when I was a kid was like learning stuff and then going and teaching it to them and going to teach it to other people. And like that has followed me throughout the years. And now I'm finally in a place where I get to do coaching and I get to teach people and I get to train people on the cool stuff that I've learned and the cool books that I get to read. And so, you know, there's an interesting thing. My uncle and actually my godfather told me one time that the secret to a successful life is to find something that you love doing and then find people that are crazy enough to pay you for doing it. And I feel like when it comes to designing a business around your lifestyle and around your God-given purpose, the majority of the time, it's going to end up being something that you were doing as a child just for fun.
Mm.
Like whether it's drawing or art or learning or whatever that or building something or playing around with electronics, that ends up becoming the thing that you should be doing later if you're following your God-given purpose and talents.
Yeah. Funny story about that is I actually had a conversation with someone not that long ago. She was probably, I hate guessing a woman's age, but I would guess she was about 50 years old or more. And she had a
Yeah.
business built around Legos. I was like, wow, that is pretty cool. She like builds like for realtors, like she'll build the house that the people are going to move into out of Legos. She'll create a diorama of an event in somebody's life. It's I was like, wow, that's really cool. I never knew anybody that had a business centered around Legos. So
Yeah. It's all about product positioning. If you can find the right people to buy the thing, like you can be an artist and you can go put your art on Etsy and make $20 for a painting, or you can go and draw something very specific that's meaningful for somebody and make 10 times as much because you positioned it appropriately. And that's what that is. It's like I can position a Lego set to be really meaningful because it's built around a house that somebody's moving into and a and an event. And therefore, I can actually create a business out of it because it's highly profitable, again, because I positioned it appropriately and it's that meaningful to that person. And this can be done with almost anything. And that's the really cool thing about business, right? You can build a business
yeah,
around anything as long as people find value in it.
that's right. That's right. So next question is kind of related. If you had to swap business with another entrepreneur for a month, who would it be and why?
I I wouldn't.
Hmm. Wow. Not even if you had the chance to step into Elon Musk's shoes.
I think that that would be a horrible day. Like, so here's the number one, I think that thinking about swapping shoes with anybody else is kind of a fallacy, if you will. It's kind
Mm.
of a thing that the enemy does, is saying, "Hey, I want to actually have what you have, even though I have no idea what it looks like to be in your shoes."
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if I knew what it looked like to be in Elon's shoes, he had a reel the other day that I watched, which I thought it was really interesting. It was like the thing about being a CEO of a business is your entire job 24/7 is putting out fires.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it would be great to have all the money that Elon has, and that might be the reason that somebody would say, "Oh, it would be so sweet to be in Elon's shoes for a day." But like, go look at the problems that he has to deal with every single day, because that's what you're really stepping into. Yeah, you might have an unlimited amount of money for a day, but also you're dealing with all the crap that he deals with, like heavy as the head that wears the crown, right? And so I am not in anybody else's shoes. I am not in a place where I would swap anything with anybody else because I'm building what I'm building and what I'm building is aligned with me. And so what they're building is aligned with them. And unless I somehow found some entrepreneur that is perfectly aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing and why God put me in this world, then I'm not going to swap places with them because they're on their journey and I'm on mine.
That's such a great answer. And I think there's a couple things in there, right? With Elon Musk, like what are you prioritizing? Are you prioritizing money, right? Like that to me is not happiness, right? It's good to have money, right? We all profitable Christian business. We want your business to be profitable, right? That's one of the reasons that the ways that we help people. But at the same time, again, kind of what you do, you're helping people get into their passion and passion, falling in love with the journey and doing your passion and making money while you're doing it. That's really the key to it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, once you get to Elon's level, right, is for him, it's not about making money.
Right.
I mean, of course, he has shareholders and all that kind of stuff that he has to deal with, but I'm actually a big fan of Elon's because you can see so much in the stuff that he comes out with that he's really about the betterment of humanity
Hmm.
and the advancement of humanity and going to Mars and all these insane visions that he somehow has the ability to make come true because he is bold enough to have this vision and to do it. Like he doesn't need to worry about money. He'll never need to worry about money again.
No.
Like he could start and bankrupt Tesla 5 or 6 different times and he would be okay because he'll be fine. But it's ultimately about the advancement of human life and advancement of civilization and advancement. And so he has such a strong why behind everything that he does. And that's the reason that I think he's found so much success, right? Like, I like that you mentioned the Profitable Christian podcast and all of those things. And because I feel like as a Christian and as somebody, as a follower of God, we like put some sort of like dirty connotation to the idea that we need to make profit. And it's funny because even a minute ago, you mentioned that we've pivoted a lot in the last few years. Because back in the day, I had you on my podcast too.
Hmm.
And my podcast at that time was called Business and Ministry. And
Hmm.
so it's kind of like we both kind of flipped spots in a way. My podcast now is called Making of a Coach, where I tell coaching stories and all of that stuff. So it's a whole pivot for me. But one of the big key points that I would always mention to people is like, stop letting profit be a dirty word. Here's the crazy thing, like one thing I notice in coaching, and it drives me crazy, and I can maybe tell this as a story. I've been going through this new launch where we're creating these things called invitation funnels, right? So the idea is that you need to communicate a message to a specific customer. You have to invite them to something and then leave them on wanting more. The invitation is something like a masterclass or a webinar, or a training, or a podcast, for example. And through this launch, I have some people that I had been working with for years that I gave it to them for free. And I have some people that paid a pretty decent amount for it. Now, as we're going through it, because we're in beta right now, the people that paid are the ones that have dates set and are launching their invitation, have promoted and advertised and done all the things. They're getting the result. It's really incredible to see. Like they're my favorite people because they're showing up to every call that I do. They're doing every training. They're accomplishing every homework assignment. The people that got it for free, or the people that are getting it as like, oh, this is just included in what we've already been doing for the years, have not done any of those things. They don't show up to the calls. They don't show up. They don't do the homework. They haven't finished the things. They haven't set their dates. So the reason that I mention this is that it's actually in our best interest to charge and to make a profit for the things that we do. Because if we don't make a profit, we're actually going to be hurting our customers. That's actually one of the things that I have on like a beef that I have with Christian ministries. We give everything away for free to people, and then they don't value it because we don't value free crap.
Hmm.
Like I'm not going to value a free group that I go to on Monday nights as much as I would if I paid $1,000 to be a part of that. And I'm definitely going to get the $1,000 result if I parted with $1,000. Now, of course, that leaves the problem of, well, what if people can't afford the $1,000? Which, of course, that's where ministry and giving back and all of that stuff comes into play. But are you running a business or are you running a charity?
Very
Period.
true.
Like that's
Very
what you
true.
get to decide. Are you running a business or charity?
Yeah. Um, there's hand up, hand out, hand up instead of a handout, right? Teach someone to fish rather than fish for them. All those acronyms come to mind um, about that. So yeah, I totally agree. Thanks for tuning into today's episode.
As a Christian entrepreneur, we want to give you something for free. If you go to clientsforthekingdom.com, we have an ideal client avatar generator on there for free. It's something that we've spent thousands of dollars on, countless hours out, and building out this structure of showing you who your ideal client avatar is and an offer stack that can work for your business.
Enjoy the rest of the episode. So I have the fill in the blank question for you, and that is the Bible verse that keeps me going in tough times is blank.
I love this question too, by the way. Here's the thing about entrepreneurship or running a business. I feel like no matter where you're at, you're going to be on a roller coaster and constantly getting kicked in the teeth. Not in a bad way, but like we tie so much of who we are and our identity to the business and to the success of the business and where it's going. And tying so much of who we are to what is happening in the business is going to create like a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, a lot of like really hard stuff and growth that you have to go through. And so the verse that really shows up for me is the one I quote all the time. And it's Romans 5:3. And it says, not only so, we rejoice in our suffering because our suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance is where we find character, and in our character is where we find hope. Look at that as a framework. Suffering creates perseverance. Perseverance creates character. In our character, which is basically who we're becoming, is where we find our hope. We find our hope in who we're becoming, and the only way that we become something better is through character building, right? And through suffering and persevering through the suffering. And so when you think of, or when you're waking up in the morning, or you're going through a hard season inside of your business or a hard season inside of your life, you are typically always put there for a reason. And the reason is typically to persevere so you can grow your character and become somebody greater. This is funny because I actually pulled this up as well, because James 1:2 says almost the same exact thing. And it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." It's the same exact framework in a different book. We're called to suffer. We're called to grow through that suffering and become somebody new. If you try to not suffer, then you will never become, and you will never become somebody new. So rejoice in your suffering, because without it, you will always remain the same. And so that is something that says, your question was, the Bible verse that keeps me going through tough times is, right? We all pray and want not tough times, right? We want things to be easy and peaceful and happy and all those kinds of things. But the thing that we don't realize is that if everything were peaceful and happy all the time, we'd never grow, because it's right there in the book. The equation is simple: suffer, persevere, build. And so in both of those places.
Yeah. I always say I find joy in the suffering, right? Um, and for me, joy is not necessarily happiness, right? Joy is um, internal, right? It's peace. I have peace in the suffering. That's God given. And I actually look forward to the growth, right? You have to be willing. I say this all the time. You have to be willing to get uncomfortable in order to grow. If you're not willing to do the hard things, then you should just give up now. I hate to put it that way, but if you cannot get the mindset of, okay, I have to be consistent and do the things that I am uncomfortable with until I can get comfortable, um, then you just need to reevaluate. So
And that's exactly right. Like, a big key to where, like, if we're going to talk about marketing and sales and just business and a lot of that stuff, like where it's all going right now is all based on, at least from what I'm seeing, it's all personal branding. It's the reason you run a podcast, the reason I run a podcast, the reason we create content, share stories, is the reason I'm recording a B-roll video right now, because I want to create content and throw that on my story, and it's cool. But it's all about personal brand so people can actually get to know who we are and get to know what we are. But the crazy thing is like when people either are starting to like launch a coaching brand or a coaching company or something like that, they realize the gap between where they are right now and where they want to go and the things that they have to do in order to get there. Like the number of people I've seen trip up just because they have to record a video. Like it's insane, but it's like, why would you expect yourself to be good at that right away if you've never done it before? Why would you expect yourself to be great in showing up on a training call where you're coaching somebody on something when you've never done that before? Why would you expect yourself to be really awesome at writing a blog post or creating an email sequence or whatever it is that you have to do when you've never done those things before? That's the insane part, is like through all this, I can't remember. I was listening to a podcast the other day, Andrew Huberman. It was one of my favorite podcasts, and he had this woman on who was like a psychologist. I can't remember her name. Maybe I'll share the link with you to share in the show notes or something like that. But what I found to be really interesting is she talked about this idea of a growth gap, right? So on one side, you have not knowing something, and on the other side, you have knowing something, right? So there's a gap between not knowing and knowing. And that gap, inside of it, the emotion that you feel during that process is frustration. Because when you're starting to learn any new skill, you're always going to be frustrated. Frustration is the emotion that you're supposed to feel in that knowing, not knowing gap. The reason I bring this up is because that frustration is suffering in a way. And it's not like an uninvited suffering or anything like that. But I think one of the biggest fallacies we run into in entrepreneurship is thinking that it's not supposed to be that way. Like
right.
it shouldn't be this way, or I shouldn't be suffering, or I shouldn't be so frustrated as I'm learning this new thing. Well, no, the reality is you should be, because that's the emotion that you're supposed to feel when you're going from not knowing to knowing. And if you want to know anything that you don't know currently, There's going to be lots of periods of frustration in between. Like, you think about the first time you tried riding a bike or skiing or snowboarding or anything. Like, it was really frustrating and it probably hurt a lot. But would you go back in time and not have learned that?
Right.
Because now all the joy that you get to feel that you know and you have that skill. And so again, to back it all up, um, what we're talking about here is like literally just the process of gaining any skill. And in entrepreneurship and business, you're constantly having to reevaluate yourself. You're constantly having to grow into the next version of becoming. And that's one of the things that in our program we help people do, and like just help them see it from a bird's eye view of like, who are you becoming in this stage? Who are you becoming in this stage? Because that's really what it's all about. It's like when you're just starting out, you have to become somebody who can create trainings and who can do that. When after that, you have to become somebody who can lead people. After that, you have to become somebody that can create systems and operations. And after that, you have to become somebody that can grow a gigantic personal brand and audience and influence and authority and do presentations and speaking. And so it's like, to go back to the question that you asked me a little while ago, which was, would I trade spots with anybody? I think we need to be really careful at the people that we look at and admire and idolize on social media and different things like that, because you have no idea what their calendar looks like.
Right. That's
You
very
know,
true.
there was a guy I idolized for a long time. I was really big in the Wake Up Warrior movement with
Hmm.
Garrett J. White. Incredible training, incredible program. Highly recommended for anybody who has been looking at or doing that. I have nothing bad to say about it. But I idolized the guy. Like, I literally held him on a pedestal for a while, which of course the Bible says we're not supposed to do that. Um, and I did that and I was like, I want to become him. I want to do what he does. I want to do all these things. And then like one night I like God showed me this revelation. It was just like he does this 3 day training and then this thing and then this thing and then this, like literally this dude's working 65, 70, maybe 80 hours a week. And I was idolizing him for having all this money or this worldly stuff in this house and like blah 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 blah. I'm like, but I don't want that life. That's not the life that I believe that God has designed for me. And so I'm idolizing somebody that has a calendar that isn't what I want.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm good. I'm sure there are a million rabbit holes we could go down here.
Yeah, so I want to kind of backtrack just a little bit on time, and I want to bridge the gap from like learning the new skill to the other side of it, because I feel like a lot of people struggle with their idea of time. Like they think it should be a lot quicker when sometimes it's not, and
Yeah.
focus, right? Part of the problem is they lack focus during that time. That's why the time is not condensed. So would love your insights on that.
Yeah, so it's interesting because that's actually the foundational thing that I'm putting together a framework right now inside of the free Facebook group that we offer. And the three main problems that we notice that people experience when they're first starting out is number one, clarity.
Hmm.
Being able to see clearly the path that you're on and understand what your goals are. Number two is focus, knowing which thing to focus on and when. And number three is just distraction, like getting
Hmm.
distracted by all these other shiny objects and all these different people and trying to build a business out of alignment with who you are
Hmm.
because it's what somebody else said you should do, or you're trying to copy what somebody else is doing and it's not aligned with your, like, the lack of business alignment, if you will. And so to go back on it, it's really like it's not complicated, right? Yesterday I put a post up on my story and like I had a 5 rep max on my back squat at 355 pounds and I'm like, oh, this felt awesome. And Jim Rohn has an amazing quote that I use all the time. It's like most people overestimate what they can do in a year
Hmm.
and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. The reason I was able to squat that much yesterday at the gym is because I've been doing it consistently for 10 years. Like, that's a really long time to
Hmm.
be doing one thing. But in 10 years, the results and the fruit of that are something really incredible as long as you persevere and continue, or at least remain somewhat consistent. Like, there was like a year or two that, let's say I probably fell off. COVID happened throughout that whole period of time and all that. But still, like, it's consistent work for a very long time. If you're in it, you need to be in it for the long haul. But more importantly, you have to be thinking about what the long haul looks like. Like, what do you really want in 10 years? But more importantly, it goes back to the framework of the idea of who am I becoming, right? What skills do I need to learn who do I need to become? What types of habits and disciplines do I have in my lifestyle that are supportive of that person? And then what habits and disciplines do I have that are not supportive of that person? And I'll give you another example. Um, I'm feeling a big calling on my life right now to go back into ministry and become a pastor and do some different things. And I sat down with a couple of the people in my church a few weeks ago, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they gave me a lot of really great advice on what I should do and what I shouldn't do. But one of the things I realized is like, and God downloaded this to me one morning. I was addicted to nicotine, I was chewing tobacco, and I was vaping. And I
Wow.
realized that I'm sitting there and I'm like hitting my stupid little vape thing. And I'm like, the guy that I'm becoming doesn't do this. Why am I doing this? And so I set a goal and I realized I have to stop this if I'm going to become that. And so today, actually, as of this morning, is 3 weeks. So it's been 21 days since I've had any nicotine. And that's because I set a goal. And the reason that the goal was able to be achieved is I knew that it was required in order to become the thing that God told me that I'm supposed to become.
Mhm.
And so, how I would apply this, if anybody's listening, is what are the things that are happening in your life that are not aligned with the person that you want to become? Because in scripture, right, the profitable Christian, as a Christian, we're called to be holy. Well, the word holy is a really interesting word, and it means to be set apart. And you know, being an entrepreneur is a very lonely journey, or at least it can be. You talked about the entrepreneur's journey. That was what your thing was called for the longest period of time. The reason that it's lonely is because you don't get to do the same stuff 99% of the people do. You have to live different. You have to be different. You have to become different. And so there are way fewer people that you're going to relate to. Or Alex Hormozy talks about this a lot too. Is like one of the crazy parts when you start gaining success in all of these things is that people that are below you tend to talk crap about you. And that's because you're shining a magnifying glass on their lack of results. Period. There's nobody that's ahead of you that's going to give you crap for not going out on the weekends and not drinking and waking up early in the morning and doing this and working out 7 days a week. Like, there's nobody that's ahead of you that's going to give you crap for that. It's only the people that are not doing those things. They're going to be like, why are you doing all this? You're making me look bad. Like when I did 75 hard like two years ago, the hardest part about the whole not drinking thing, 75 hard is a challenge where you do a bunch of stuff for 75 days. One of them is not drinking. The hardest part about the not drinking thing was that when you went to parties, it made other people uncomfortable because
Mhm.
it magnified the fact that they were. That was the
Mhm.
hardest part. It wasn't that you weren't drinking, it was that it made them feel bad that they were.
Yeah, I remember just going because I'll be honest, like I'll have a beer occasionally, right? But I'm not a drinker. And sometimes I will go to networking events, et cetera, and people will be drinking and I won't. And they'll be, and I feel that. I feel like, why is he not drinking? But I feel like that aura in the air. It's so weird. But it's because you're set apart. You're setting yourself apart from what everyone else is doing. So as an entrepreneur, you're doing that. You're setting yourself apart from what the masses are doing, and you're willing to make sacrifices that other people aren't willing to make. That's a huge part of it. What are you willing to sacrifice in order to be an entrepreneur, right? So
And that's what it is 100%. Like, that goes back to like some of the stuff I was talking about is like if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna play this game, you better be all in on it, right? And what I mean by that is like please, please, please don't become an entrepreneur or try and go and start your own thing because you want to make money.
right.
It's not going to work. When stuff gets hard, you're just going to want to give up and go find a job.
Hmm.
And a divided mind or a divided heart is like that's also in James, but it says like it's like a something on waves that's tossed to and fro. And so if you're constantly feeling like, oh, I'm in, or I'm doing this to make a bunch of money, or I'm out, or I'm in, or I'm out, or I'm in, or I'm out. One day, like one of the most insulting things that I've heard in a long time, not in a bad way, but it was like I just got really offended by it. And it was like a family member told me, like, why don't you just go get a job?
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, that hurts because it's just so disconnected from who I know myself to be. I could never do that. Like I just couldn't. There's no way because I am so all in on the development and who I get to become through this journey that that's so much more important than any dollar in a bank account. Because I can take that character and that character is going to go with me into the afterlife, into heaven, into all the different places. The money, like nobody's going to write on my gravestone how much money I made,
Right.
but they will write how I grew and how I led people and how I helped other people become more successful and how I taught people to fish and showed people a greater possibility in the world and all of the cool things that I get to do every day. And the only reason that I get to do them is because I'm committed to disciplining myself every single day and not doing all the crap that will knock me out because that's what the enemy wants.
Yeah. Well, I think you might have already answered this, but this segues really nicely into the secret question. And that is, what is the secret to getting through the rough spots, hard times, and challenges in business?
I mean, yeah, I think that's a great segue. And that is the secret. The secret is number one, don't go into it with the belief that it should be different than that. Like, don't should yourself to death. Because if you think it should be different or it shouldn't be hard or it shouldn't be this way, you're automatically in a disempowered state. Understand that it should be this way. And the reason that it should is because it is. That's the evidence that it should. Right? Like anytime you say should, you're disconnecting with God's purpose for your life. Because if it should be different than it is, then it would be. Because that's how God is. Like, there was a great quote from what's his name? Wayne Dyer. There was a video I was watching the other day. I love Wayne Dyer. And he basically said, everything that's ever happened in my life happened for a reason. And the evidence that I have for that is that it did.
Yeah. So simple, but so true.
But so true. And so like the secret to getting through the hard spots is another quote that I love from James Clear is we don't rise to the level I actually have it right here on my desktop. I literally can look at it. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So James Clear, Atomic Habits. And the reason that I have that on my thing is the systems that we have set up, which is the disciplines, how we wake up in the morning, what our day looks like, what our habits are, what our routines are. Those are the things that we fall into. So when things get hard, we're going to fall into our comfort zone. So the real question is, have you designed your comfort zone to be in a place that still moves you forward and through? Or is your comfort zone in a place where you're sitting on the couch watching Netflix for 9 hours, smoking weed and drinking? It's totally fine. I'm not knocking people who do that because that's totally cool, whatever. But if you want to make it somewhere greater in the world, that might not be the greatest strategy long term.
Right.
And so you're going to fall to the level of your systems. And if my systems are this habit tracking checklist and this morning routine that I do every single day, and this 12-week strength training program that I'm going through, and my disciplines that I have with reading the Bible every morning, and the devotional that I'm going through, and the 30-day challenge, like consistently adding to these things, that's my systems. Then there's no question when I wake up in the morning, no matter how I feel, there's no question about whether or not I do it.
Yeah. I want to sit here for just a second if we could, because I think a lot of people think what happens when my system breaks or I slip one day, right? Like I don't do my Bible study that day or I don't go to the gym that day. The thing is, you always fall if you've done it consistently long enough, you're going to fall back into your system, right? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, the outlier should be the days that you don't do it, not the days that
Hmm.
you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's okay. Like I'm not sitting here telling people that they have to work out every day for 75 days in a row.
Yeah.
But I am saying, to go back to Jim Rohn again, he says success is a few simple disciplines repeated every day.
Mhm.
Failure is a few errors in judgment repeated every day. And that's it. That's the key to a successful life. Like he actually defines success, or Napoleon Hill, I think, defines success is the continuous pursuit of a worthy goal. Period. It has nothing to do with how much money you make, it has nothing to do with how many employees you have, how many clients you have. Success at the end of the day, when you put your head on the pillow, is saying, did I or did I not pursue my goal with everything that I had today?
Yeah. One other point I want to bring up about this is the perception, right? I think people see the big success and they don't really realize it's all the small steps that make up that success, right? It's the consistency, the little things that you do every single day. Yes, it may seem monotonous and you're just gaining a little bit every day, but that little bit ends up compounding to become the success at the end. Then you look back and you say, oh, it was all those little things that I did,
Yeah,
right?
it's the compound effect. It's getting 1% better every day,
Yep. Yep. I saw a
right?
great video of Kobe Bryant talking about that the other day.
Yeah, Kobe, at least if I recall the story correctly, he was not a very good basketball player in college.
Right.
But he set a goal, if I remember correctly, he set a goal that I am simply going to take more shots and I'm going to work harder than every other person that's out here.
Well, I don't
And
think it
it
was college because he came straight from high school, so it must have been high school.
okay.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
yep.
he was all about like he wasn't the best, but he committed himself to just get a little bit better every day.
Well, this is a story I tell people a lot, right? Like, you don't get to a place where you know a bunch of stuff overnight. Like it just doesn't happen. But I remember 2016, it was just about 9 years ago now. I was driving the car to a co-working space. I had just started my company. I was a young entrepreneur. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. But in Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, he had a small phrase that just really stuck with me. And he said, the one habit I've noticed that every millionaire that I know does, I haven't met one that doesn't, is they all read approximately 52 books a year. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I'm not reading that much. Like, this is insane. And now, like, I set a goal from that point forward that I was going to do that every year, and I have not missed.
Wow.
That's 9 years of 52 books. Do the math. That's 450 to 500 books that I've read in addition to the Bible. I do count audiobooks, but now I'm at the point where like one book references another, which references another. I order them faster than I can read them.
Hmm.
It's kind of frustrating. You should see my pile over here and my pile over here. And my pile, I'm not kidding you. I have about 30 of them, right? Like, anyway, the point is, this is what happens when you do that consistently for 9 years. But
Hmm.
I'm telling you, the first year I saw no fruit from that. Maybe even the second year, very little fruit. Maybe even the third year. But now, like, I actually had a client hire me a couple years ago simply because of that fact. She's like, I just thought
Mm.
it was so cool that you've read so many books. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. It's just part of what I do every day. But you can't lead people from a place where you're not doing the same things that you're telling them to do.
So true. So I have a couple questions on that. One of those is just having read so many books, do you have a top five
Um, like, do
or
I
even
have a
top three?
documented top five?
Top three. Let's narrow it down a little bit.
Um,
I know
man,
it's
I
so
don't know.
hard.
Well, it just depends because so one of the skills that this has given me is the ability to accurately prescribe
Hmm.
the right content to people based on something that they're experiencing at that moment. So I'd really need like a category for you to tell me, and then I could be like, oh yeah, you should totally go get this book or go get that book. One of the ones I've read over and over again is How to Win Friends, not How to Win Friends and Influence People, but Napoleon Hill's Think and
Seven
Grow
laws of
Rich.
Think
Read
and
that
Grow
once a
Rich. Yep.
year. But this year I finished his Laws of Success one as well. It's about that thick,
I have
60
it too.
pages. It's one of the most incredible reads I've ever had. I probably will go through that several times as well. I like going all the way back to like old stuff.
Hmm.
Like you'll notice, especially when you start reading all of if you were to set a goal and start reading that much, that really everybody's talking about mostly the same things. It's all different wrapping paper on different ideas. Um, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is a great one. Again, it depends on what category we're talking about. I'm
Do you have
reading through
a spiritual one other than the Bible, of course?
The Bait of Satan is one I'm reading for like
Mm.
the third time right now by John Bevere. Talks about how one of the things that holds Christians back in the most part is being offended or offense to
Mm.
different things. Like, oh wow, that's a really, really great one. The Bible, obviously. There's a lot of really interesting like stuff I've read. Richard Rohr is one of my favorite authors, and he has a book called The Universal Christ. Do you know
Mm.
who Richard Rohr is?
I don't.
He's a little edgy, if you will. He's actually a Catholic friar.
Okay.
But he's written a lot of books. They call him a mystic, so he's kind of like more mystical on that side of things. But he has a lot of really great content. So one's called The Universal Christ, one's called Falling Upward. And I really love the idea of falling upward. And it's this idea that you have two halves of your life. The first half is striving towards goals and going to school and college and getting a career and all of those kinds of things. And the second half is where you start to realize that none of that's actually important. What's the most important are the relationships that you have in your relationship with God and following your purpose.
Mhm.
And some people never reach the second half of life, and some people do. And a lot of times, the reason that I think it's so interesting is because it applies so well to business. Because a lot of times you start out, you go to school, you do all the things that everybody's always said you're going to do, and then eventually it comes to a point where you have like a midlife crisis, if you will, right? Some people for their midlife crisis, they just go out and buy the convertible or car, but some people feel like they need to burn their entire lives down because they've been
Mhm.
designing something for somebody else. And they're like, God, what do you really have for me? And then they start going through an identity crisis because the entire life that they've built is not actually built in the identity that God has, and it's been built for the world. And so I love this idea because eventually people do get to a point where they want to follow through on their God-given purpose, and they want to follow through on their God-given skills and talents and things. And they have spent so many years gaining all these skills that aren't aligned with that. And then it's all about finding that alignment again.
Yeah. So the
And
quicker you can
so,
find it, the quicker you can find the alignment, the better. So
yeah,
that's awesome. Just I want to kind of go back to something else that you said. It's kind of slipped my mind. Hold on a second. Um,
you're good.
Oh, this is what I want to touch on is I think the other thing that throws a lot of entrepreneurs off, we talked about the timing and focus and things like that, is back to the comparison, right? It's like they'll be going, they'll be start to get consistent, and then they'll start to compare themselves to somebody two or three tiers up above them, right? And they're like, they feel like they'll never get there, right? So just talk about that a little bit.
Um, I mean, I could say a lot of stuff about that.
Oh,
Again,
okay.
you're well, so first and foremost, one of the things I see a lot of people do in marketing is trying to copy. And it's not even comparing. You see what somebody else's after state is, right? Let's say it's a coach that you admire or a business that is doing the things that you want to eventually be doing. And so you'll compare yourself to their after state and then think that you need to do the things that they're doing in order to become them. And this is a fallacy because if you were to look back, right, what you really need to do is look at that person and maybe actually call them and be like, this is the reason that I'm launching a podcast called Making of a Coach because it's all about the stories and the origin stories and where people came from as a coach, not just being a coach in general. And understanding that like it's not about where they are right now or what strategies they're doing right now. It's about where they came from and what they had to go through in order to become who they are today. And so I'll give you a more concrete example. So let's say, for example, you're looking at a coach, and I'll just use the coaching industry as a thing because it's really what I'm closest with. You're looking at a coach and they're launching courses and community and doing all these really cool things. They're going on all these podcasts. They're launching all these digital products. And you're like, oh man, that's so sweet. Look at that $100 course that this person's offering. Right. And so the digital course world was huge a few years ago. It still is kind of, it's just way harder to sell them because people like don't like buying courses anymore, because they want community and a lot of other things. But you see this guy's front end offer, which is a digital course for $47 or something like that. And you think, oh man, this is so cool. I should create a course for $47. It sounds like it's the way to go. This guy's probably making so much money selling his $47 course. What you don't realize is that that $47 course is what's called a loss leader. And the whole point of it is to break even on advertising spend so they can offer the bigger thing on the back end. And that bigger thing is a community or an actual coaching program or something that gets people bigger results. And if you don't have that thing built first, then the $47 course is never going to work. But the way you have to see how they built that thing.
Mhm.
Right. So, how do you go about building a high ticket coaching program or a high ticket consulting program or a high ticket, I sell my expertise for money, right? How do you do that? Well, you have to, number one, start working with people. Number two, when you start working with those people and you know who they are, they're going to teach you what they need. They're going to tell you, and you're going to build your products, you're going to build your servings, you're going to build your uniqueness around your avatar, who you think you're called to serve. And over time, you're going to build products, you're going to build cool stuff for those people, but they're the ones that are going to teach you how to do it. You can't just guess. You can't just make it up. You can't just do things. And the only way to do that is through years of effort, trial, experience, and working with people. And if you try and skip that step and just go and create a course for somebody because you think you're going to make money, it's not going to work because you're playing that comparison game. You're comparing your current state with somebody else's after state. Their after state is they're doing this, and you don't even know how well that's working. Like the more, it's crazy because the more you do like higher level consulting, it could be a 10 million, 20 million, $30 million company. You walk in and like you meet with their C-suite and realize it doesn't even matter how big they are. Most of them still don't have their poop in a group.
That's right.
It's like insane. Like it's just bigger problems, bigger fires to put out, bigger things. And so the way that I see this is simple. When you get into the comparison gap or comparison trap, remember that you are on your own journey. That there's actually a lot of good insight you can get from somebody else's journey. And if I were to draw this, I'd draw a line of like 1 year and break that down into quarters. And then I would draw a line into 10 years and say, hey, if you were to become them in 10 years, what's the thing that you have to do right now? Like, what are the skills that you have to gain? Do you need to learn how to do public speaking? Do you need to learn how to do recording? This AI tracking is driving me crazy. All right, there we go. It keeps turning itself on. I don't know how. I wonder if this works. So have you seen the reactions things? Anyway, never mind.
No, it's all good.
My point is, you have your own journey, right? The entrepreneur's journey, the profitable Christian thing, and it's up to you to, if you are an entrepreneur or if you're running a business of any kind, your role is number one, to attract customers. That's it. Number two, to show those customers that you can solve their problems. And number three, to solve their problems. That's the core of every business that exists.
Yeah, there's so many formulas in there. Like I love how you illustrated that there's a step-by-step process that you may be trying to jump ahead 3 steps when it's not time to jump ahead 3 steps. And I want to just go back to the books, right? There were a time when I read some books that I wasn't to that step yet, right? And I read it, but it was not applicable. Good to Great is what I reference a lot in this. I wasn't ready for Good to Great when I read Good to Great. So it's all about prescribing someone like almost like a doctor. This is what you need right now to heal your problem, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, on the very front end of most of the customer journeys that I teach people to do, as well as even our own, is we typically have people assess themselves in those 3 categories that I just told you. Like, how well do you know who your customer avatar is? How well or how big of an audience have you built at this point? Have you tried doing any types of like advertising or anything like that? Like, how are you doing for the attract stage? And then once you attract them, do you have the ability to educate them on their problems, to educate them on solutions, to educate them through that process to get them to buy? And then once they buy, how well do you actually solve their problems? How well do you actually deliver on the promise that you had? And so we have assessments, and I even teach other people to do like at the very front end an assessment of all these things: red light, green light, yellow light, or however you a scale of 1 to 5, however you want to assess them. Because is similar to what you're talking about, Good to Great. You could read the entrepreneurial operating system right now, and you can be a solopreneur. And what the heck good is that going to do for you? It's not going to do anything. It might be a good operating system, a good framework for you to manage yourself, but you don't have a team. You don't have a C-suite of executives. You don't need to run a level 10 meeting right now. You don't need to do any of that crap. So that book is a horrible decision if you're just trying to get started, because you probably need to learn how to generate leads and create social media content right now.
Yep.
But that's actually the reason that I think it's so important that you hire a coach, because a coach can put you and point you in the right direction. That's why I said, like, one of the superpowers reading so many books has given me is the ability to accurately prescribe the right thing at the right time for somebody. And the only reason I know that is because, similar to a doctor going to medical school or a pharmacist going to pharmacy school and learning about all the different medications, I've learned about a ton of different frameworks. And I've learned about a ton of different solutions and prescriptions for different problems that people experience in their business. And the only way that I've done that is through 10 years of reading a lot of books and a lot of podcasts and a lot of content and a lot of things. And yeah, it could be exhausting, but that's the price that you pay. Like it's like going to medical school.
So, here's a prescription for someone, or let's come up with a prescription, if you will. Um,
Sure.
so for most people, let's say most entrepreneurs, I believe you should never stop learning, kind of like you're reading 52 books every year, right? How much time do you feel like you should allot to continuing to learn on it? Let's just say in a day or in a week.
I don't think that there's any set amount.
Okay.
It depends on the urgency of the thing that you need to learn, how fast you need to learn it, and it'll all go into your goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the laws I like to use in this area is Parkinson's law. The idea behind Parkinson's law is things will expand or contract based on the amount of time that you give it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's one of two things that's going to be required of you. If I were to lay out the next 12 months into 4 quarterly sprints and then 6 week sprints there, let's say between now and 6 weeks from now, why does this thing keep turning back? Whatever. Between now and 6 weeks from now, my requirement is to launch the sales funnel or to do this thing or to create a training. And so I know that the gap between where I am right now and being able to do that is a skill that I don't have. Well, there are a number of ways to learn that skill. Number one, it depends on how much money I have and how much time I have, because those are the two main resources. Resource number one is money. Resource number two is time, right? So I can spend a ton of time reading a book. It'll take 8 to 10 hours, and then I'll be trying to figure it out myself as well and implement it at the same time. Or I can spend 2 hours hiring a coach that knows how to do it, or I can hire somebody on my team that knows how to do it, or like each the more expensive it is, the more money I spend, the less I need to know. And that's the reason that I think, like, if you go back to the Bible, it says, if those who have even more will be given, and those who don't have what they have will be taken away. That's because,
Profitable.
yeah, right. That's because when I have more, I have more resources and money to buy the skills that I don't currently have. Henry Ford was like known for this.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm not the smartest person. I don't know how all this stuff works. I've surrounded myself by really smart people, and they all know what to do. And they tell me, and I just make decisions and set vision. And I'm like, that sounds really good. That sounds great. Also, if you look at it in a different way, if you don't have money, that's not going to work because you can't pay all those people. It's not going to work. So you have to initially invest your time, and eventually the game of entrepreneurship is just always buying back time. That's it. So again, you have to attract customers. You have to educate them on what you do, and you have to solve their problem. And how you do that is first going to take a bunch of your time because you don't have money. Or maybe you do, and money is the shortcut because you can hire somebody who knows how to do the thing that you don't know how to do.
Yep.
And that works.
So,
And
so
so it's really, yeah.
So as soon as you can, as soon as you invest enough time to make enough money, you just start investing your money to buy back your time.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. Well,
so
that's exactly right.
this kind of segues into the next question. I think that you have something called the Big Domino Formula, if that's right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so how can entrepreneurs use that to get unstoppable momentum?
Yeah. I mean, it's very simple. And I'll give it to you instead of going through the whole consulting framework that I use. I'll give it to you in one simply daily discipline.
Okay.
Every morning before you start the day, write on a piece of paper, what is my big domino?
Mm-hmm.
Period. And make sure you do that thing that day.
Yeah. We have something very similar that we teach, the three needle movers. Like every day we have this daily planner, right? The Profitable Christian Business Planner and Journal,
Oh,
right?
nice.
Yeah. And so every day, what are the three needle movers for the day? And usually they have to be, well, most often they have to be revenue generating. What are the three things that you're going to do today that are going to generate revenue? The more revenue, like the closer it is to generate revenue, the more important it is. So.
Hmm? Yeah, and so you're gonna have like if you go into the Covey matrix or whatever it is, you're gonna have the urgent and important things, the urgent and not important things, and then everything else. Or sorry, the urgent and important, and then not urgent and important. Then you have everything else that you just should not be doing at all because it doesn't make any sense. But um, it's all about like, and the reason I say one thing is I want it to be simple, right? Like if
Mhm.
I accomplish one thing that gets me closer to my goal, that's not urgent but important.
Mhm.
And that's actually a key, maybe. Your big dominoes are usually not urgent.
Mhm.
It's not a blaring fire that's coming in that you have to deal with right now. It's that thing that you've been putting off. It's
Mhm.
that thing that you've been not wanting to do. And you know that it's renting space in your brain and actually keeping you up at night. Like it's crazy because I'm the worst at this. Because I'll have this task that I've been supposed to be doing and I've been telling my team that I would do for a week, week and a half. It's keeping me up at night and allowing me to not be present in the moment because I'm thinking about it when I'm at church on Saturday and I'm doing all these different things. And the stupid task would have only taken me about 2 hours, but I spend 16 hours ruminating about it rather than just doing it when I needed to do it in the first place. And I need to like, I feel like as soon as we get off of this, I have like three things I need to go do because like this is just human nature to not
Yeah.
do this stuff. But the amount of freedom that we feel when we do that big domino every single day, the big domino formula is very similar to Gary Keller's The One Thing. He has a thing he calls it the focusing statement. And so if you read that book, I can give it to you in one sentence. What is the one thing I can do right now such that everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? That's Gary Keller's The One Thing. It's very similar to the big domino. What is the big you got it back there? Yeah, there we go. That's one of the books that I've read in the past 8, 9 years.
Nice.
Um, but that's a great way to get focused and to understand like there is one thing that I could be doing that makes a lot of the other stuff easier. And the number of times that I see somebody like, I'll give you an example. The number of times I see somebody who's a solopreneur, or let's say an insurance agent or something like that, and they spend hours and hours and hours trying to automate this thing when they're making no money and they could have just been hiring somebody to automate the thing.
Mhm.
And I'm like, why aren't like how many sales calls are you making every day?
Mhm.
How many touch points are you reaching out to? Did you send 10 LinkedIn DMs today? Did you create a social media post? Like, did you do the most basic foundational things, or are you just trying to find the shortcut to automate all this stuff for you before you've even figured it out in the first place?
So good. So many people are there.
It just drives me insane. It's like you're not willing to do the actual work to get through the thing to be able to hire the person that can do that thing for a skill that you never needed to learn in the first place.
Um, I'm challenging anyone that is listening to this. Rewind what he just said. Go back and listen to that again because I'm guarantee you there are a lot of people that are listening or watching this podcast that they are struggling with that right now. They're not doing the right things. They're doing a lot of things, but they're not doing the right things. So thanks for bringing that up.
Well, thank you for repeating that too, because I don't even realize sometimes like how powerful that can be. Because think about it, if you're a mortgage banker, right? And if you were like your big aim is just to create consistency in your business. Like I don't coach mortgage people. I coach somebody who coaches mortgage people, which is awesome. But think about this, like if your main thing is I need to make $10,000 a month, which is like closing $1 million in deals. That's like 1 to 2, maybe 3 loans per month. I need to do that at bare minimum. And once I do that, or if I were to have that, then I'd be able to hire the marketing guy. I'd be able to hire the ads guy. I'd be able to hire the admin assistant. I'd be able to do all that stuff. Then everything comes down to how do I make it so I can make that 10,000 consistently? And I promise you, it has nothing to do with your sales CRM. It has nothing to do with the automations or the lead magnets or any of that crap that you have because you're still in that first stage to create consistency and stability in your business before you can scale. We all get so caught up on all the scaling strategies that we don't do the normal stuff that gets us to the stability to be able to scale in the first place. And so, what are the things that like I bring up mortgage too because I was a mortgage banker
Okay.
in my 20s, so probably like a decade ago. And like I just knew you get in the office in the morning, you call through your leads, and if I did 100 dials that day, I'm successful. It had nothing to do with sales, marketing, social media, or any of that stuff. And I promise you, that still works.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just we're all getting lazy with technology. Like
Yeah.
technology and AI.
How many touch points can you make in a day? And then if you can start, once you start getting good, compounding, right? When you start getting good at outreach, when you start getting good at sales calls, it starts compounding. You start closing more sales calls. You start turning a lot of those more touch points into leads. That's just full circle back to what we're talking about, being consistent in the things that'll move you forward, right?
Yeah, exactly. But also being consistent in the right things based on where you are right now.
Yes. Yep.
Again, to bring that back home too, based on where you are right now.
Yep.
Meaning the things that you need to do probably aren't the same as that guy. Again, I'll just go back to mortgage because it's an easy thing. The guy that's closing, that has a gigantic YouTube brand and has all these different things and is closing $1 million per day or something or whatever, 10 million a month and doing really well. He has to do different things than what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Because you are where you are on your journey, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not too good to make sales calls. You're not too good to do DMs and outreach and all of the things that are required to get to that first step. But the thing is like, to go back to where we started in the beginning of this call, you have to be willing to go through the really sucky part and the suffering
Mm-hmm.
and all of that to earn getting to that next level and to earn the leadership. Because if I come in as a leader and I'm trying to get somebody as an appointment setter or
Thanks
a
for checking out the
prospector
Profitable
or a
Christian Business
marketer or running
Podcast.
ads or
Remember
recording
to
ads or
like,
recording videos or any
subscribe,
of those
and
things,
share.
and I haven't done that personally, I haven't been willing to go through that suck, then how can I lead them
That's right.
in going through that suck? It's just incongruent unless I'm just paying somebody else to do it, which is, again, is the shortcut if you have the money.
Yeah, man. I feel like people are getting so much out of this. All right, so I want to dive into faith a little bit now. We
Yeah.
talked a lot about, I feel like we've given a lot of value around marketing and business. Now let's talk about faith. So, how do you handle moments when your faith and business ambitions seem to be in tension with one another?
Um,
Or does that
that's a
happen to you
good,
anymore? Or
it
go
doesn't
back to
really
the time.
happen.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll tell a couple of different stories, and today's a really cool day. Today is my 9 year anniversary of getting baptized. And so I had that come
Nice.
through on my Facebook stuff. So I'm like super excited. 10 years since I became a Christian again,
Nice.
9 years since I got baptized because it was a year after that. But um I'd say for the first, I don't know, it was for the first 6 or 7 years of being in business, a lot of it was about making money for me. A lot of it was about my ego. A lot of it was about this word that keeps coming up for me, and I'm still doing work on it, and I think I probably always will be. But this word that keeps coming up for me, which is prove it, prove yourself,
Mm-hmm.
prove that you are worthy, prove that you have what it takes, prove prove that you need the things of this world to be valuable when God says you're valuable in and of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the biggest incongruence. And like, I believe that, when the Bible talks about us being made in the image of God, right? The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity, all of those things. The place where we're going to feel the most alignment, the most aligned with God's will, the most aligned with all those things is when our heart, our mind, and our spirit are all aligned as well with the things that we're doing. And I've noticed, like, it's funny the symptoms that you'll notice when you're out of alignment. You're going to want to sedate. You're going to want to sleep in.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to want to not do any of the strategies that you've done. You're going to want to not continue, not lead, not like all of these things are symptoms of being out of alignment. And so the real question is, why am I doing this? What is the idol? What is the thing that I'm aiming for? And so, like I said, it's been a while since I've had to feel any of that because most of what I'm doing now is purpose led.
Mm-hmm.
And money is just like one thing I tell people a lot is money is a lagging result, not a leading indicator.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that money is a stupid goal. Like if you say like, oh, what are your goals in the next year? Oh, it's to make $1 million. Okay. Well, how are you going to make $1 million? Well, I'm going to serve 100 people and I'm going to make $10,000 from each one of them. That's a good goal.
Mm-hmm.
100 people, they're each going to pay you, right? And I'm going to get 100 people amazing results, so much so that they'd be willing to pay me $10,000. So now my goal is to get 100 people amazing results.
Mm-hmm.
That's a much better goal because I actually can control that.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so my goal right now is I'm thinking about and looking at going into ministry or trying to tie in ministry even more into my business. What I've really been feeling called to do more right now is making sure that I'm giving God all the glory even more. Um, and understanding like I want to I want to like I realize the gap between where I am right now, and this is to go back to the things like we've given value in business, right?
Mhm.
But I would venture to tell you, like I have the same types of goal setting frameworks for my business and sales, marketing, and operations as I do in my personal life in mind, heart, relationships, and wealth building for my personal life. It's all the same. And the key to like the gap that I see in the next level of evolution of who I get to become is in quitting tobacco, quitting nicotine, continuing to be set apart, living a life that is disciplined and frameworked in a way. And I have to become that. But I also need to become a better public speaker, and I need to become a somebody that's even more a man of God and more a man of the
Mm.
word and understanding what's in here and memorizing scripture. Like I've been reading the Bible for years, but I still don't know verse names, like different, like there's so much more that I want to know, and I am just like dying to dive in to that, and that I just need to become that. And so I want to meld my business and meld the way that I treat people and meld the way that I work with clients so much more to what God has, so I can have my entire business be an example for a light that's lit on a lampstand, not covered, not hidden. Like Jesus said that you don't light a candle and put it underneath a bucket, right? You light it and
Right.
you let it shine. And so the candle is the faith that you have, and letting it shine is letting the world know this isn't me. This isn't my business. This isn't something that I can do on my own. It's actually in the glory of other people and letting them grow and letting them do it, because I have made it so much over the years about my own ego and my own proving myself and my own brand and my own stuff, that it's been so much of the Josh show.
Mhm.
And it's time I become Joshua, which is the leader of the other people.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Similar, I'm on a similar path as you. I'm becoming more and more obedient to what the Lord has called me to be. And it's crazy where the Lord starts to take you when you start being more obedient to his will and not your own. Um, it's just enlightening. Like he puts people in my path, puts opportunities in my path that align with his will, and I can see it very clearly. It's just amazing. And I want to reference the profitable Christian business in this is that I say this over and over again. People look at the word profitable, kind of like we talked about at the beginning, and they're thinking money, money, money. No, we're talking about profitable for the kingdom, right? Your business can make a lot of money, but not be profitable for the kingdom. So um, that's really our heart is let's have your business be profitable for the kingdom, not just make more money, but also be profitable to grow the kingdom. So,
Well, and I like that you said that too, because the real question becomes, what are your motives?
mhm.
What is the profit for? Because if I'm tying all of my things and I basically make agreements and things like that and say, the reason I want to make profit is so that I can serve the kingdom, so that I can build and steward these resources and build this next thing that I think God's calling me to. And I need money to do that. I need money. I need authority. I need a brand. I need to build all of these different things inside of my life so that I can fulfill God's purpose for my life even more. Or is it so I want all this money so I can buy a big house and so I can have a boat and so I can dink around and da 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 da. Like generally, and I can't say what God will and won't bless because I'm not him and I don't know, but I do know that um it feels right to me that the reason that I want to make a profit needs to be for the kingdom, not for personal gain or worldly gain, or so I can do things that are sinful or wrong. And so your why, the reason that you're here, right? If you go down to foundational business building or even foundational life building, having a purpose statement for your life. My purpose statement in life is that I am a spiritual warrior, chosen, elected, and commissioned to liberate men into the abundant kingdom of God. That's the reason that I'm here. I need to make profit to fulfill that mission.
Mhm.
I don't want profit so that I can travel or so like, yeah, those things are all going to be cool. And yeah, of course I want that. Of course I want the boat and like I want to have a pilot's license. And I have a lot of goals that I want, but we'll see if it's your will and if I'm alive to see it. That's what James says in um James 13. If I'm alive and I'm alive, or if it's your will and I'm alive to see it, then that would be awesome, God. But in the meantime, I'm here to fulfill my purpose or fulfill your purpose for my life. And that purpose is going to be something so much greater than money, so much greater than anything else or any other idol that I could worship. And so aligning everything towards the greatest possible good, the highest possible aim that you can have is always a winning formula.
Yes, yes. I know we're getting short on time, so we could definitely go a lot deeper, and maybe we get you back for a third episode. But tell people where they can find out more about you and what you do.
And we're working on a lot of different stuff, but I'll share with you a link to the Facebook group that we're launching right now. As of right now, I'm coming up with a new name for it. It's called Extract Coaching Method right now. But the Facebook group is really where you can go deep and not have to pay anything and kind of learn about the foundational business principles and goal setting and setting yourself forward. Actually, what I'll do is I'll put it on a short link. So if you go to link.joshjurkovich.com/group, that link will lead you there, and I'll just make sure that forwards with the URL redirect or whatever. Or you can just go on Instagram at Josh Jurkovich, and you can find me and send me a DM. I'd love to talk to you. I respond personally to all that kind of stuff because I believe that business is built on relationships. It's not built on automations or AI. So, and that's just a little dig on all you AI people who are trying out there to make chatbots and not create relationships with your customers. Stop that. I mean, AI is cool to an extent, but yeah, go to Instagram at Josh Jurkovich or link.joshjurkovich.com/group, and that will forward you to join our group and kind of go deeper in any of the stuff that we do.
Nice. I'll put those links below. Make sure to reach out to Joshua. Just to be honest with you, we do a little bit of AI on our side, but we teach a hybrid, right? We want you as part of it. Yes, you can automate some of that, but at some point you need to get in there in that conversation. So,
yeah. Just to speak on that, I don't, I love AI. I think it's incredible. Most of what I do also is built on AI. But the amount of people that think it's just going to replace everything and make it, you don't have to make those sales calls and you don't have to do prospecting and you don't have to reply to your customers. Like, it doesn't replace you. It only helps. It's a tool. It's something extra to help you be even more efficient. But like, create real relationships with your people. That's what it's all about. That's what we all want. It's what we all need. So AI will help you with that, and it's great. And AI is awesome.
yeah, I feel like the more AI grows, the more people are going to want community. So,
yeah, 100%.
oh, well, thanks again. One last question. I know you have to go, but I never leave this unsaid. Any parting words of wisdom? It could be a one-liner, anything you want to say to the audience.
Didn't see that on the questions. I feel like I'm being put on the spot here.
You are.
Yeah, where my brain would go with this right now is just the idea that like it's the whole should idea. Everybody, you might have heard a lot of different things in this podcast or in this episode, or a lot of the different things I said. And there's a possibility that some of that has left you feeling like there's a gap between who you are and how you're being today and how you should be, or how somebody who's insanely disciplined would be. But the one thing that I guess I would leave you with is telling you the one thing I wish I had heard over the years so much is that you are exactly perfect, exactly the way that you are right now, because if you weren't, then you wouldn't be that way right now, because that's where God's calling you to. And it's not about being perfect or stepping into an Andy Frisella, I can do 75 hard and like build this gigantically disciplined life overnight. Again, most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. You're playing the long game. Like, this is not something you're going to have done in a month or 2 months or 3 months. You might be one of the lucky ones or whatever, but you're playing the long game. God's game is a long game. Think how long David had to be in the desert, but even after he was anointed, before he became king, and how many trials he had to go through. That was like what I don't remember exactly, like 20 years, 30 years or something like that, after he was anointed with oil to become king. And during that entire time, he was leading and doing different things. Same for Joshua and same for Moses. Like, Moses was in the desert for 40 years. don't think that you don't have to go through a desert, and don't think that it shouldn't be that way, because it's building your character and allowing you to grow into the person that you get to become. But also keep an eye out for the things in the worldly, or the flaming arrows of the enemy that will come at you and try and sedate you, try and get you to not read, try and get you to not wake up in the morning, try and get you to not do the work, because it's way better for him to have somebody who is just mediocre, just staying in regular life, not trying to build or do anything crazy for God's purposes, because that's just way easier for him. So I don't know if that's good for parting words
Yeah,
of wisdom, but
that is awesome. I would love to throw in there. Remember to pause and look back. Have a grateful heart, because you will see, no matter where you are, you've come from someplace, right? If you've had any type of momentum, any type of discipline, any type of consistency, you'll be able to look back. Because I think too often as entrepreneurs, we're always looking forward and we don't take time to look back of where we came from. So, thanks again, Josh. This has been awesome. And until
yeah.
next time,
Oh,
entrepreneurs, keep moving forward.
cool. Thanks.